November is Native American Heritage Month here in the NFL, celebrating Native American heritage across the league. And here to help us and kind of discuss some of his roots and the legacy of Indigenous peoples here in Western New York is Buffalo Bandits defenseman Frank Brown joining us on the show. Frank, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me, and happy Indigenous Peoples Month.
Yeah, thanks. And you're kind of the coolest of all because you're doing it all right here in Western New York. You're a native here. You grew up here. Your roots are here. Your family's here. The whole 9 yards, and you're playing professional sports here. That doesn't happen very often. It's got to be pretty cool for you and your family.
Oh yeah, I mean, I kind of get tired of saying it, but not really. It's a dream come true. I think growing up in Western New York, the Buffalo area, the sports culture doesn't really get overwhelmed by the big city element. You know what I mean? I think Buffalo itself is kind of synonymous with, their sports teams, right? And so, in Buffalo, we got the Bills, in Buffalo, we got the Sabres, and in Buffalo, we got the Bandits. That's how I was raised, and that's, like what I obsessed over, throughout my childhood, and to be able to be in the position that I'm in now, playing for the Bandits, at home, it really is a dream come true.
For those of our listeners and viewers who, may not be wholly familiar with your history, maybe just kind of shed some light and, kind of give a shout out to your hometown here in Western New York and kind of where you came up.
Yeah, so I am from Salamanca, New York. It is the Allegheny Indian reservation, territory, whatever you want to call it. I was born and raised. I'm an enrolled member of the Seneca Nation, the Turtle Clan. And, one thing unique to the communities in this area, in Western New York, the Seneca communities in Cattaraugus and in Allegheny is, we're all multi-sport athletes. The game of lacrosse obviously originates, from the Haudenosaunee people, as a game given to our people, as a means for joy, as a means for, alternative, conflict resolution. It's called the little brother of war because, at some point, our peoples realized that, fighting wasn't the answer, where there's more sophisticated, means of conflict resolution, and that's where the game of lacrosse came from. It's, what we say in our communities is that you play the game for those that cannot, because it's supposed to be, healing for our community. It's supposed to bring joy, like the passion that you put into it, the joy that you get out of it. It's all spread. It's all, a melting pot of this cosmic energy, and it's great, to be playing, in a city like Buffalo, where, like I said, sports fandom is just as common as anything else, in Western New York.
Yeah, it's interesting too. As I read your piece and the articles that have been written about it, give us an insight as certainly, Native American culture and this month is also kind of important, but give us some insight as to, what it can mean for your community.
I think one thing about the reservation, is that not a lot of people from outside of it knows, what it's like within it, and I think, that works, the opposite way as well. Not a lot of people within it, are really too concerned with, what goes on outside of it, and when you consider, a fan base like Buffalo, like you can really overlook just how much, these teams mean to our communities, and just how much of these fan bases are made up of people within our communities. So yeah, I just, I think the efforts by the Bills and One Buffalo to, acknowledge and promote, this occasion is really important, because it opens the door to see, just how relevant, the Buffalo, the Bills, the Sabres, and the Bandits are in our communities, right?
Yeah, no question, Frank. And, you said something that kind of caught my ear earlier. And as I'm hearing you speak, like, I feel like you're choosing your words carefully, because this is an important subject for you. And, whether, and I'm sure you're well aware of it, you're kind of a torchbearer for this kind of awareness. And I can tell just by the way you're talking, you take it very seriously. You realize the importance of it. But I think the thing that caught my ear that you said was that, yeah, there are natural connections between lacrosse and Indigenous peoples, because of the history of the sport is tied directly, to Indigenous peoples. But you said it's other sports too now. And how can the NFL, now fully aware of making this an initiative and the importance of making an initiative, how do we create that overlap that, you had just said really isn't there yet between people that live on reservations that don't really concern themselves with what goes on outside, and vice versa? How does this initiative maybe help with some of that overlap to maybe make each side more familiar with one another?
Yeah, just conversations like this, man. I think, you don't know about something until you experience it, right? So the idea of Frank Brown, a defenseman for the Bandits, he's from the reservation. It's just like people's imaginations could go anywhere with that, right? And so being able to, have this platform at my disposal and have a conversation, with you guys, and be relatable about a lot of things that, everyone else, in Western New York cares about. It's really important.
Yeah.
What is the biggest misconception the people who don't live inside the reservation have about what life is like there?
Geez. So there's God, I guess within Western New York they have, a vague understanding. I think, like the generic, misconception is that, it's kind of lawless, on the reservation, which is like not the case. We're a sovereign tribe, which means that we have the right to identify and govern ourselves separate from, some things that might apply on a state and a federal level. But at the same time, we do have, our own, infrastructure when it comes to, legislation, when it comes to, law enforcement, all these things.
Yeah.
So I think that is one, kind of on the surface kind of misconception that I've experienced the most when it comes to, people within Western New York, but people outside of Western New York, you'd be surprised how many people that I've experienced, that have really no, understanding that Native Americans even exist, so being in Buffalo, we obviously, One Buffalo has their partnership with our tribe's casinos, and our tribe's casinos is, I think the biggest employer in Western New York. So, everyone around here has an understanding that, yeah, these tribes exist, these people are here, but you'd be surprised out in the world how often that's not the case.
Yeah. Well, listen, Frank, we appreciate you shining a light on it with us here today as Native American Heritage Month kicks off here in November. And I'm confident the Seneca Nation is proud of how you represent them as a member of the Bandits. So we appreciate the time. And we should remind everybody, Bandits single game tickets now available at Ticketmaster.com. We appreciate it, Frank. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Frank.
All righty, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good luck this season. That's Frank Brown, defenseman for the Buffalo Bandits, as we kick off Native American Heritage Month here in the NFL. And Frank's certainly an outstanding representative on that front.